Hello, this is Darren Sloan, and I will be reading from my novel Demon Hunters. Part 1, Chapter 1. My name is Jake Corba, and I spent my 25th birthday baking away along Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, California. I wasn't homeless as such, but it was a lot more pleasant for me to camp out along the street than be at home, which was nothing more than a glamorized roach motel, which enjoyed frequent visits from bill collectors and repo men. My creditors had become increasingly aggressive in their attempts to squeeze the last bit of blood from my veins, and I didn't want to make their job easier by being a stationary target. I sat along the busy street and begged for change when the mood struck me, but mostly I just sat there and thought. I tried to keep my thoughts away from the past. I realized many people reflect fondly on their histories, but I've never found any comfort in mine. I never could see any point in dredging up a painful life to figure out exactly where it all went wrong, when I already knew. I could pinpoint my first and biggest mistake to the day I was born. That's when all the trouble began. I didn't remember much about my parents, as they didn't last very long. There was a fire in the church on the night of my baptism. A fire, I have come to understand, that I started after I was possessed by an otherworldly force. A demon, to be exact. A demon had infiltrated my small, fragile body, and I was filled with its dark power. I didn't know what I was doing, and I don't recall much of the experience, but I caused the death of my parents and nearly every single soul in that church. That's about all I can remember from my childhood. I have flashes of growing up, being tossed from one foster home to another, trying desperately to contain the beast that took residence in my soul. I didn't have many good memories to hold on to, so I never tried. Over time, I learned to control the demon on my own. It became a part of me. And I learned that I was a lot better off on my own than with any family. No one could understand who I was or what I had become. The demon inside me gave me strength. It helped me to survive on the street. I saw a wealthy-looking woman coming toward me on her way to one of the chic boutiques along the boulevard. I looked up and mumbled a request for some spare coins as she got closer. I expected her to just walk by, but to my surprise, she stopped and dug out some coins from her purse. She dropped them into my backpack, which was set next to me, and she hurried on her way. When I was sure she was out of earshot, I rifled through my bag and found the money she had left, a couple quarters and a penny. I shoved the coins into my pocket to join the others I had collected that morning. I almost had enough for a small cup of coffee. Happy birthday to me. The day dragged on as it always did. I sat and watched the usual parade of life pass by, the trendy, overprivileged kids running around town with their parents' gold cards, and the bored housewives who came out to fill the void in their lives with designer labels. I walked along the block and mingled with my fellow street people. Once you get past the crazy, they have some interesting stories to share. As I was heading back to my usual spot, I stopped in my tracks. I could see him across the street. There was a very weird-looking dude who seemed to have gotten into the habit of stalking me. He was a big guy, too, built like a brick wall. I had seen him staring at me a couple times over the past few months. At first, I just thought he was a local. I've seen a lot of people more than once around here. It wasn't that unusual. But when I realized every time I saw him, he was looking at me, I began to worry. His gaze was penetrating. It was as though he were expecting me to do a trick or something. I turned away from him. When I looked back up, he was gone, and a wave of relief overcame me. I'm not the kind of guy who'd scare easily, especially after all I've seen, so I wasn't sure why this freak was making me feel so uneasy. I decided then was as good a time as any to pack it in. I could feel my skin burning, but I didn't mind. The demon inside of me helped to keep me healthy and well. Any wounds I suffered, it would heal. Any ailments I had, it would cure. The voices in my head were a small price to pay for that kind of coverage. By the position of the sun in the sky, I could tell it was getting late. Time to eat. But I didn't have enough to get anything. I went over to a nearby trash can and did a quick scan of its contents in case someone had tossed some leftovers or a half-full soda cup. Nothing. But I had a theory that I did have a bag of stale potato chips in my pantry back at my dump. I grabbed my bag and threw it over my shoulder and headed down the street. The next day, I came out at my usual time and camped out as always. It was a bit cooler, and I was able to stake a claim on a spot on the sidewalk that had some good shadow coverage. I sat just watching for a few minutes, but I got bored. I went to my bag and pulled out a pen and paper. I started to write, nothing deep or profound. I would sometimes just write down what came into my head. I wasn't always sure if it was coming from my head, of course, but that wasn't the point. I just needed to get it out. It also helped to have something to focus on other than myself. It really helped pass the time. I was tearing through the pages for what seemed like only a few minutes, but when I finally came up for air, I saw 3 hours had passed. I felt my stomach begin to rumble loudly. The potato chips from last night weren't quite as filling as I had hoped they'd be. I set the paper down and considered my options. It wasn't even noon yet, and the foot traffic was unbearably light, so I didn't have much more than the money I had collected yesterday. I double-checked my bag in case I missed something. Nothing. I then decided to drown my hunger in my writing. I grabbed the paper and went back to my words. The shade I had been luxuriating in for most of the morning was fading, and I could feel the heat spreading. My forehead was moist with sweat. As I was starting a new line on the paper, I thought about taking a break to find a new spot. When the shade returned, I looked up, and the brick wall freak was standing right over me. I froze. He had never gotten so close before. I could smell something coming off him, either his cologne or soap. It was subtle at first, but soon it was all I could smell. Some sort of mix of animal musk and Old Spice. "Hello," he said. His voice was like thunder rolling. I snagged my bag and tried to slide away as slowly as possible. "Hi," I said in a wobbly voice. "Jake Corba?" the man asked. I felt a bit of a shock come over me. It had been so long since I had heard someone say my name. It almost seemed like hearing a foreign language. I wasn't sure how to respond. I had made ducking creditors into an art form, but I wasn't getting that kind of vibe from the guy. He didn't seem like the bill-collecting type. "Yeah," I said cautiously as I got to my feet. I began inching away, just in case. "It is you, isn't it?" he said. He sounded relieved somehow. A smile, or what I thought was a smile, began to form on his lips. "It's me, all right. Do I know you? My name is Ivar." "Ivar? Ivar what?" "For now, just Ivar. I have come a long way to meet you, sir." "Sir?" "I am what some might call a student of the universe. I have traveled all over the world studying from the greatest religious and philosophical minds on earth. I have learned from monks, shamans, and priests, holy men from every corner of the globe." "Okay, that's great. Your passport's full. Congrats. Can I go?" "You don't understand. I've come here to study from you," he said. His tone was so sincere, I nearly believed him. "From me? In case you haven't noticed, I'm not a holy man. I don't even go to church." "But you're a Corba." "Guilty. The day you were to be baptized, a demon took you. A demon that still dwells in your soul to this day." "You've really done your homework. How do you know all this about me?" "I have insight." "That's great," I said. I had thought he was creepy when he was just looking at me, but hearing what he had to say raised his creep factor by 1,000,000. By the look in his eyes, I could tell he really believed it all. I knew I had to get out of there fast. This has been interesting, but I need to get home now. Bye, I said, and turned away. I took the long way home, but as I was walking, I could sense someone behind me. I turned and saw that Ivar was following me. He wasn't chasing me, but keeping pace with me. Clearly, asking him to leave me alone wasn't going to work. I turned a corner onto a small street a few blocks from my apartment and spun around to face Ivar as he approached. "What is your problem, man? I don't want to talk to you. I don't know how you know so much about my life, such as it is, but it doesn't impress me. Just leave me alone. I'll go to the cops if I have to." I realize how strange this may seem to you. I've come to learn from you because I feel my teaching has become limited. It doesn't matter how many religious leaders and figures I speak with. They're all just mere vessels, devices chosen to deliver a message. But you are as close to the very essence of the living energy of this universe as any living thing can get. You are not a representative of a higher spirituality. You are a part of it. Your flesh and blood are entwined with the roots of creation. You have experienced a higher plane of existence and became one with it. You have a knowledge that I could never hope to attain. I want to know all I can learn from you. I want to know how you came to be and why. And Ivar continued, growing more excited. Hold on there, dude. You want to learn about me from when? When I was a baby? That's right. Well, you know about as much as I do. After that church thing, it's all blank until my first day at my first foster family. Surely you have more information than that. Your soul is bonded to a demon. Your family has been hunted and persecuted by demons for centuries. You are a perfect example of the functionally cursed. Cursed? Persecuted? Demons? What are you talking about? Don't you know about your family? No, I don't. I never really cared to investigate the whole family tree. Not an issue. Being stuck with the demon has been bad enough. I don't believe this. You don't know the story? The curse of the Corbas? Don't know it? Don't care to. Come with me then. I will share with you what I have learned. Thanks, but no thanks. I never knew my family, and that's been a fine arrangement so far. They seem to be too much trouble, especially if they're cursed. This has been freaky and disturbing, and I think you need to go. Now, I said, and turned away from Ivar and continued my way home. Don't you even want to know why you live under this curse? He barked at me as I got further from him. Not interested. Even if I can help you cure yourself, he said. I stopped. The world stopped. I felt a rumbling inside me, but it wasn't my stomach. His words echoed in my head. For years I had heard the word cure thrown around carelessly. Before I learned to control the demon, I tried to expel it. I talked to everyone I could about it, witches, psychics, anyone. A few offered hope and promised they could save me, but they were all wrong. After years of that, I decided it was better to just live with the demon, with the damn thing, and close the door on any hope of being cured. I wanted to turn back to Ivar and agree. I wanted him to show me some miraculous procedure or remedy that all the others had overlooked, the one silver bullet that would have finally freed me forever. But before I could utter a word, I remembered the disappointment I felt each time one of those saviors had let me down. I couldn't do it again. I wouldn't. I braced myself and continued down the street without a word. I could hear Ivar behind me, begging me to come back, but I kept going forward. Chapter 2.